A colossal, armored centipede known as a Wallamcade scrambles down a cliffside, its many legs clattering against the rock. Below, Mason stares up in horror as his companions shout warnings. The hooded woman urges him to hang on, crying out that if the creature catches him, it's all over. He struggles for footing on the slippery terrain, his own legs failing him in this critical moment. His eyes widen as he sees the monster reflected in the terrified eyes of the hooded woman, who has stumbled directly in its path. Before the creature can strike, Kondo vaults over Mason's fallen form. With a determined grimace, he plunges his sword deep into the Wallamcade's head, unleashing a violent spray of dark ichor. Mason watches in stunned silence as Kondo lands, the beast collapsing behind him. The hero dispatched the formidable monster in a single, effortless blow. His companions assess the situation. The hooded woman remarks that Mason was lucky. Had the Wallamcade used its fireball skill, he would have been burned to death. The light-haired woman agrees with a carefree smile, calling him reckless but fortunate. Kondo, his face splattered with the creature's blood, turns to Mason. His expression is cold as he delivers a blunt order: leave the party. His words strike Mason with the force of a physical blow. He stands utterly shocked, unable to process the command to leave the hero's party. Even the light-haired woman questions the decision, suggesting it's too harsh. But Kondo remains unmoved. He turns his back, stating the conversation is over and that Mason should be gone by morning. He then repeats his decree for all to hear. As of today, I am expelling Mason from this party. He glances over his shoulder, his voice dripping with disdain. He confesses that the mere sight of incompetent people like Mason annoys him to the point that it makes him want to kill him. Mason is left frozen in horror. Later, at the Landoria 4th Guild branch, a cheerful receptionist named Slim calls out a greeting to Ma-san-san. Beside her, the guild branch manager, Gale, leans on the counter with a sly smile, also recognizing the young man. He explained to the guild receptionist, Gale, that he was in the process of leaving his party. She listened intently, her eyes narrowing as she asked if something had happened. When he remained silent, she correctly surmised that Kondo was the one responsible. She pressed him for more information, questioning why people called him incompetent when he handled so many different tasks for the party, from scouting to support. Mason admitted that he had never told anyone about the skills he possessed, which was the root of the misunderstanding. He hesitated, scratching the back of his head as he explained why he kept his abilities a secret. They were slightly special, he confessed, and it seemed rare for anyone other than demons to possess them. He had feared that if rumors spread, it would cause serious trouble. Her expression hardened. She admonished him, stating that hiding things from friends won't make them trust him more. Agreeing with her, Mason accepted her advice. He should start over from F rank and clear his head. Taking her advice to heart, he accepted an F rank quest for goblin extermination. Alone in the woods, he found his targets, a horde of goblins. He mused that with his old party, this would have been an easy victory, but now, he was on his own. He quickly realized that fighting them head-on as a human was impossible. With no other choice, he resolved to use the skill he could never tell Kondo about. Spotting a goblin with the body-strengthening skill, he activated his own ability to find it. With his target locked, he lunged forward, his hand outstretched. He invoked his unique power, Plunder, an ability to steal an opponent's skills away. The transfer was instantaneous. A glowing sigil appeared on the back of his hand as he began loading the stolen body-strengthening skill. The goblin, now drained of its power, slumped pathetically. He understood then that the skills he stole could be used for himself. Now empowered with the goblin's strength, he turned to face the rest of the horde, his silhouette radiating a newfound confidence. He unleashed the stolen strength, cutting through the goblins with brutal efficiency. With grim determination, he resolved that from now on, everything would be done by him, and him alone. He sat alone, wiping a grimy hand across his face. He knew this path was necessary, but a pang of loneliness still struck him. His moment of solitude was broken by the sudden, frantic flapping of wings as birds burst from the nearby trees. The source of the commotion was a trio of elves crashing through the undergrowth. The one in the lead stopped short upon seeing Mason, cutting off a sentence. Caught completely by surprise, Mason could only stare back and question their sudden appearance. Before he could get an answer, a massive, gnarled creature of living wood, a torrent, emerged from the forest. The female elf clicked her tongue in annoyance. This was an aberration. Torrents were known to be peaceful creatures, yet this one was clearly hostile, possessing the skill of natural recovery. The elves immediately adopted defensive stances. The leader demanded to know what had happened, but his companion could only report that the creature had attacked them without warning. Mason, caught in the middle of the conflict, prepared himself for battle. Their attacks, however, proved useless. A wound on the torrent's arm began to sparkle and regenerate instantly. Realizing their efforts were futile, Mason watched the display of power. A thought struck him. If the creature used a skill to regenerate, then perhaps he could do something about it. He reached out his hand. With a surge of will, he activated his own unique skill, calling out its name, Plunder. The skill connected, inflicting a powerful backlash. The torrent recoiled, its wooden face contorted as it realized its regenerative ability was gone. The transfer of power sent a wave of agony through Mason, who clutched his head in pain. Deprived of its greatest defense, the torrent retreated into the forest. As the lead elf watched it go, Mason sat on the ground, relieved that his gambit had worked. He immediately tested his new power, activating natural recovery. His strange ability caught the elf's attention, who turned and asked if he was an adventurer. His companions gathered around. The female elf knelt, thanking him for his help and asking if he was injured. Mason assured them he was fine. The lead elf expressed his relief, but his gaze remained fixed on the boy, his next question hanging in the air. He is immediately confronted by one of the elves, who demands to know how he accomplished his feat. The elf presses him, noting that the moment Mason raised his hand, the torrent's regeneration ceased, and asks what kind of skill he used. Mason stammers, flustered and unsure how to explain. Thinking quickly, he decides he must deceive them to protect his secret. He feigns ignorance, claiming he doesn't know what happened either. With a sharp, decisive motion, he attempts to cut the line of questioning short. Before the male elf can protest, his female companion steps in, chiding him for bombarding the person who helped them with questions. She insists that their first priority should be to offer their thanks. Mason agrees, relieved, while the woman turns to him and expresses her own desire to thank him properly. She smiles, saying she's glad no one was injured, but warns him to be careful in such a dangerous area. As she speaks, she gently takes his gloved hand in hers, a gesture that catches him by surprise. The elf immediately realizes her forwardness, her cheeks flushing as she quickly apologizes for holding his hand without permission. Attempting to diffuse the awkward moment, Mason asks for her name. The question seems to startle her, and she lets out a small, flustered sound. Just as she seems about to answer, a voice from her party calls out for Luna-sama, causing her to jump. She quickly dismisses it, claiming it was nothing. After a moment's hesitation, she introduces herself as Luna. Her expression turns thoughtful as she seems to begin another sentence, but she trails off without finishing. Sometime later, the group of elves prepares to depart. The woman named Luna thanks Mason again, promising a more official gesture of gratitude later. As he watches them leave, he observes that they possess a different aura from other elves he's met and wonders if they also reside in the town of Langora. His thoughts shift back to his own journey. He feels a surge of excitement, reflecting on his recent success in killing a variety of monsters beyond just goblins. A quick check of his inventory reveals a substantial collection of materials and a purse holding 4,212 gold. He returns to the Adventurers Guild, announcing his arrival to the receptionist at the counter. Internally, he wonders if completing the goblin quest will be enough for the guild to finally recognize him as a proper adventurer. He appears worn out, his bangs singed, and apologizes for taking so long. The receptionist thanks him for his hard work, but Mason, misinterpreting her tone, immediately assumes he failed. She quickly corrects him, exclaiming that the quest was, in fact, a success. To prove it, he empties his tool storage, slamming a surprising number of proof-of-kill pouches onto the counter and startling the receptionist. The receptionist, flustered, begins to tally the items, counting goblin ears and even a magician's wand among the spoils. She explains that she stored them using her own skills and asks him to wait a moment while she finishes processing everything. He quietly agrees. As she works, he asks if it will be a problem that he also defeated monsters that were not part of the original quest. His question is answered when she presents him with a heavy pouch of coins. He is stunned by the amount, realizing it's enough to afford lodging for 2 or 3 nights. He immediately protests, believing the reward is far too generous. The receptionist shakes her head, insisting that it is a fair reward for Mason's efforts. Nearby, another guild employee, Gale, observes their exchange. Gale steps forward with a cheerful greeting, congratulating Mason on successfully completing his first quest all by himself. Still taken aback by the reward, Mason confirms that he somehow managed. His eyes widen as a realization dawns on him. Her presence must be related to the unusually large reward. His unspoken suspicion is confirmed as Gale smiles and makes an official declaration. She has decided to raise Mason's adventurer rank from F all the way to D, offering her congratulations for the achievement. He stands at the guild counter as Gale confirms his solo victory over the goblin magician, telling him not to be weird about it. From behind the desk, Slim chimes in, congratulating him on a great job. Leaning in close with a beaming smile, she enthusiastically tells him he did his best, calling him pretty good. Her proximity leaves him slightly flustered. She pulls back slightly, her arms still around his shoulders, and explains that with his new rank, his rewards have increased and the range of available quests has expanded. A wave of relief washes over him. At least now, he won't end up homeless. Her expression then turns serious. She takes him by the shoulders and asks if he can go to the royal palace the next day. He asks if it's for delivery, but she admits she doesn't know the details. She simply tells him to come tomorrow, promising to issue him a pass for entry. As he processes the summons, his mind races with anxiety. He wonders if he's being called by someone from the royal family, and worries he might be scolded for some unknown reason. He has no idea what to expect, but Gale simply reassures him that it will be fine. Watching him leave, Gale clenches a fist with a confident, almost mischievous smile. She reflects that she hasn't been given any major tasks recently and silently urges him to go with confidence. Later that evening at the Amphips, his anxiety gives way to hopeful excitement. He wonders aloud if the king might ask him to carry his luggage again. He questions his own happiness and concludes that, yes, he's fine with that. Lying on his bed, he contemplates his new beginning as an adventurer, starting from scratch without friends. He takes stock of his current skills: auto recovery, tool storage, search, fireball, and a minor body strengthening ability. The thought of the skills he acquired with the hero's party surfaces, but he quickly pushes it away, frustrated that he keeps forgetting he is no longer one of them. Meanwhile, the hero's party discusses their next move. The hooded mage asks Kondo if he is aware of a four-eyed crocodile reportedly in the southwest village. Kondo confirms, adding with annoyance that there's also a sect in the area. A red-haired companion holding a large piece of cooked meat tells him to eat, stating they will depart after the meal. Lying in bed, Mason finds his thoughts drifting to his former companions. When he closes his eyes, he thinks of them, especially when it comes to the subject of skills. He remembers how much he truly enjoyed their adventures together, recalling his earnest dream of one day defeating the Demon King as a united party. Shaking off the memories, Mason stands resolute before the main gate of the royal palace in the kingdom of Landoria. He makes a decision. He will find new friends, and if the royalty has summoned him just to be a luggage carrier again, he will refuse. A gatekeeper in full-plate armor recognizes him, calling out his name. The guard remarks that it has been a long time since the hero party's formation ceremony, and teasingly notes that Mason is still as tiny as ever. He then asks if the rumors of Mason's expulsion are true. Before Mason can fully react, the guard reveals that the hero, Rondo, has just arrived. At that moment, Rondo himself appears, presenting a pass to the guard. He asks if Mason is there with him, but the guard clarifies that Mason was kicked out of the party and is there on different business. Mason overhears, a sense of dread washing over him at the prospect of having to meet Rondo. The guard tries to reassure him, but adds that Rondo seems very grumpy and looks at Mason as if he wants to kill him. He tries to compose himself, informing the guard that he has decided not to be a luggage carrier anymore. Unaware of the tension, the guard simply wishes him luck finding another job and hopes his visit to the palace is for something good. With the time for his appointment having arrived, Mason is instructed to show his pass. The grand doors swing open, revealing a brightly lit and opulent hall within the palace. Stepping inside, he looks up in awe, finding the place just as amazing as the rumors claimed. As he takes it all in, a sharp voice suddenly calls out his name. He turns to see Rondo striding towards him, his face contorted with rage. "Why are you here?" the hero demands, his glare filled with such malice that it feels as if he wants to kill Mason on the spot. He sneered at Mason, tauntingly asking if he could even perform chores now and suggesting he could wipe the floor. Mason, taken aback, retorted that he was called to the palace, though he admitted he didn't know the reason why. Rondo's companion tried to de-escalate the situation, apologizing for the trouble and insisting they hadn't become enemies. But his words were ignored as Rondo lunged forward, grabbing Mason by the collar of his tunic. Before the confrontation could escalate further, an older official intervened, placing a hand on the companion's shoulder. He declared that he did not approve of quarrels within the palace, then turned his attention to Mason, stating that he would be his guide. The official led Mason away down a long, stately corridor. As they approached a grand set of doors, he announced Mason's arrival to your majesty. Inside, seated on a throne, a regal woman with long, light hair introduced herself as Sadly Wise Arkless, remarking that she was surprised to be called upon so suddenly. As he was ushered into the throne room, Mason's mind raced. He couldn't imagine who would want to meet with him. A single name surfaced in his thoughts: Luna. Just then, a familiar voice called his name. He turned to see Luna, the elf he had rescued, beaming with relief and joy. She rushed towards him, asking if he remembered her, and thanking the heavens he was safe. The realization struck Mason. She was the king's daughter. She stood before him and made a formal introduction. Her name was Luna Arkless, and she was the first princess of the kingdom of Landoria. She explained that she had told him she would thank him later, and she had hoped to do so today. Mason could only stare, utterly stunned by the revelation. The princess apologized for the suddenness of her next words, but pleaded with him to listen. With earnest determination in her eyes, Princess Luna Arkless made her request clear. She wanted Mason to— Mason stares in wide-eyed shock at the Elven Queen's unexpected proposal. The idea of him and Luna forming a party is something he had never considered. He remains speechless as the Queen acknowledges his confusion, apologizing for springing the idea on him so suddenly. Internally, however, Mason realizes this is more than he could have ever asked for. She then elaborates, suggesting that since Luna is a princess, it's important for them to understand each other's backgrounds and abilities. To that end, she proposes they undertake a quest together and suggests they move to a different location to discuss it further. As they walk through a sunlit courtyard, the Queen explains that what one learns on a quest isn't just about abilities. She reveals that she herself used to be in a party, a fact that clearly surprises Mason. She continues, telling them that through their shared experience, they will come to understand what each other holds dear, what they wish to cherish, and the kind of future they each desire. Her gaze sharpens as she guarantees that her daughter is not as weak as one might think, adding a boast about Luna's charm. She then notes Mason's intense eyes, calling them scary. With her points made, the queen formally asks if they will accept a quest to get to know one another. Mason enthusiastically accepts, and Luna quickly agrees as well. The queen smiles, thanking Mason for his cooperation. Sometime later, at the Adventurers Guild, Mason and a hooded Luna stand before the receptionist, Gale. She is shocked to hear Mason is forming a party with the princess and urges him to keep his voice down. Luna, meanwhile, asks what quests are available. Her expression turns serious as she leans forward, informing them that a new quest arrived that very morning. She calls it the Graveyard Exorcism. As she speaks, the scene shifts to a misty, moonlit graveyard. Her voice explains the mission. Strange noises have been heard coming from the graveyard at night. Their task is to investigate the cause, and, if it proves to be a monster, to defeat it. At the guild counter, Mason formally requests that Gale process the quest. He turns to Luna, asking for a final decision. Despite her nervous expression, she agrees, stating that this kind of mission is her specialty. Gale wishes them well, but offers a word of caution, which Mason confidently dismisses, assuring her they will be fine. As Gale handles the paperwork, Mason reflects on the quest description: strange noises in a graveyard. He feels a sense of unease, suspecting it might be more than a simple ghost. With the quest accepted, they arrive at the desolate graveyard under the night sky. Mason scans the area, noting that for the moment, there don't appear to be any monsters present. Luna quiet Ryakudatsu. His assessment is cut short when a small lizard slithers across a nearby tombstone. Luna lets out a terrified shriek and leaps onto Mason, clinging to him for safety. Startled, he points out the harmless reptile to her. He looks down at the terrified elf, who is now wailing that she wants to go home and can't do this anymore. With a look of sheer disbelief, Mason reminds her that this was supposed to be her area of expertise. Her complaints continue as they venture deeper into the graveyard. Luna insists that scary things are still scary, regardless of her skills. Mason, concerned, asks her not to dare leave him and questions if she will be all right. He decides they need to press on and find some clues, taking a step forward. Panicked, Luna begs him not to leave her behind. Mason remarks that she is acting like a completely different person from when they accepted the quest, prompting a defensive outburst from her. Her protest is interrupted when she spots something amiss. She cries out Mason's name, pointing toward a grave where the heavy stone slab has been pushed aside, revealing a dark, empty hole. They approach the disturbed grave to investigate. Mason wonders aloud if a monster dug the hole, but Luna senses something is off. He kneels for a closer look, and a chilling realization dawns on him. It looks less like something dug in, and more like something dug its way out. His realization comes too late. A tall, hooded figure with glowing eyes emerges from the darkness. Mason reacts instantly, drawing his sword and pushing Luna behind him. He notes with surprise that the creature has no presence and moves slowly. Without hesitation, he lunges forward and drives his blade straight through the entity's chest. He felt no resistance as his blade passed through the cloaked figure. The garment fell away to reveal not a monster or a corpse, but a bare skeleton. As Luna cried out his name, he realized the truth. It was simply animated bones. The lack of presence, the reanimated bones, the realization struck him with chilling certainty. This was the work of a necromancer. Elsewhere in the graveyard, the true master of the undead sat among the tombstones, its power radiating outwards. It was a lich, using its skill of undead resurrection, and it had found its targets. As the lich began to channel its magic, preparing a fireball, Mason quickly warned Luna, explaining that a lich was controlling the dead. He barely had time to react before a blast of force struck, sending him stumbling backward. Cursing his lack of options, he channeled a weak physical boost into his magic. He knew it didn't have enough firepower to completely burn bones. The skeleton, though wreathed in flames, remained standing. The situation grew dire as more skeletons clawed their way from the earth, surrounding them. Mason realized his plunder skill was useless against them. They were too numerous. If this continued, they would be crushed. There wasn't even room to draw his sword. He frantically searched for a solution, believing there had to be some way out. As Luna watched him, her expression hardening with resolve, a soft light began to emanate from her outstretched hand. The light intensified, and to Mason's astonishment, the surrounding skeletons began to dissolve into dust. Luna urged him forward, telling him that now was his chance to take out the lich while she held the undead at bay. With a grateful cry to Luna, he seized the opportunity she had created, pushing off the ground and charging towards the source of their troubles. He lunged forward, his hand glowing with power as he slammed it against the lich's head. The skill activated instantly. Plunder. Nearby, another undead figure, a woman in a tattered white hood holding a gnarled staff, could only watch in stunned confusion as the direct assault unfolded. Staring at the glowing mark on his hand, Mason processes the nature of his new ability. It is called Plunder, necromancy, a skill that resurrects the dead. He clenches his fist, the sigil flaring with light. The very concept of a power that treats human life so lightly fills him with a profound sense of unease. Despite his internal conflict, his expression hardens with resolve. He turns his focus back to the lich, which is now screaming in agony, clutching its head as if under a direct mental assault. Mason begins to load the skills he has plundered. Power gathers as he prepares a fireball spell with one hand, while simultaneously channeling a weak physical enhancement into his body with the other. The necromancer's eyes widen in disbelief. Before him, Mason raises a sword that is now fully engulfed in roaring flames. With a powerful downward strike, he brings the flaming blade through the lich. The creature shrieks as it is cleaved apart, its body dissolving into black motes. The effort forces Mason to a knee as a dark aura begins to seep from his body. From within the swirling darkness, a sinister, shadowy form materializes. It bears a wide, malevolent grin and glowing eyes, letting out a low, chilling chuckle. The necromancer recoils, sweat dripping down his face. He is suddenly struck by an awful, oppressive feeling emanating from the boy before him. As Mason looks up, startled, Luna's urgent voice cries out, warning him to get down. He glances down to see shadowy, grasping hands erupting from the ground all around him. Before he can react, she shoves him forcefully out of the way. Luna places herself directly in the path of the encroaching shadows, yelling for him to move at once. She unleashed a torrent of holy light, vowing to purify the darkness. The shadowy form shrieked, its substance dissolving under the radiant assault. The light faded, leaving her panting from the exertion as the last vestiges of the dark entity crumbled into dust. Mason stood nearby, his sword still at the ready, watching the threat dissipate completely. With the danger gone, she turned to him, a wide, relieved smile breaking across her face. Overcome with joy, she threw her arms around him, exclaiming that they had done it. Her celebratory embrace brought them face to face, their initial elation quickly replaced by a sudden, shared awareness of their proximity. A blush crept across both their faces as the moment lingered. They quickly pulled apart, both stammering apologies for getting carried away in the heat of the moment. After a moment of awkward silence, she turned to him with a curious smile, breaking the tension. She asked him about the strange skill he had used earlier. He seemed taken aback by the question, so she elaborated on her own ability first. She explained that her power was Holy White Light, a purification spell specifically designed to banish darkness and was particularly effective against demons. The implication of her words caused his eyes to widen in shock. She beamed with pride, clasping her hands together as she declared with confidence that she was indeed very strong against demonic forces. He expressed his amazement at her power. Her curiosity piqued again. She pressed him for details on his own abilities, recalling that he had used all sorts of skills, from physical enhancement to fire magic. His expression grew serious. He explained that he takes his opponent's skills, revealing that his unique ability is called Plunder. He watched as Luna's initial shock transformed into pure, unadulterated excitement. She declared his ability incredible, marveling at the idea that he could use any skill he wanted. Her positive reaction filled him with hope. He thanked her, a wide smile spreading across his face, and suggested that with their combined powers, they could accomplish anything. Seeing her slight hesitation, he then asked what her personal goal was. At his question, Luna's demeanor shifted to one of grave concern. She revealed that her younger brother, Lutz, had been captured by demons. An image of the young elf, trapped within a crystalline prison, flashed through her mind. He was barely sustaining himself with his own magic. She explained that the protective magic wouldn't last forever and that she needed to save him before it failed. Acknowledging it was a great deal to ask of a near stranger, she formally requested his strength. Without a moment's hesitation, Mason agreed, vowing they would save Lutz together. His immediate acceptance seemed to move her. With renewed determination, Luna asked if he would officially form a party with her. Mason beamed, declaring he would be honored to help. As the sun rose over the graveyard, they shook hands, sealing their pact. The party of Luna and Mason was formed. A moment later, however, a new thought occurred to Luna. She turned to Mason and asked him a simple question. Whose blessing did he have? The question left him utterly baffled. He had no idea what she was talking about, a fact that left Luna completely astonished. She elaborated, explaining that elves of royal blood receive the blessing of their mother goddess, Titania. This divine gift grants them the unique skill, all creation, enabling them to use all forms of holy magic. With that context established, she pressed him again, demanding to know who had blessed him. Just as she finished speaking, he suddenly faltered. A wave of dizziness washed over him, and he clutched his head, muttering an apology. Luna's concern was immediate, and she offered to cast a healing spell. But before she could act, he collapsed onto the stone path, unconscious. As his vision faded, a strange voice echoed in his mind, asking, "Do you remember me?" His last conscious thought was a question. "Who are you?" Mason's eyes flutter open. Hovering over him is Luna, her face a mask of worry that instantly melts into relief. She exclaims with a gasp, thankful that he has finally woken up. He sits up, disoriented, wondering why he suddenly collapsed. He apologizes, but Luna reassures him that she's just glad he is safe. As he questions whether she was all right on her own, he realizes they must get back to Landoria to report what happened. Meanwhile, at the guild, Gale reports to her superior, a branch chief. Her voice is tense, as she confirms that a lich appeared. The branch chief reacts with shock. Gale presents an artifact, explaining that it is no mistake. It's one of the lost treasures from 50,000 years ago. The branch chief absorbs the gravity of the situation, stating that something is definitely amiss and that a connection to the demons cannot be ruled out. From the side, Mason adds that the lich was carrying the treasure. The chief turns her attention to Gale, entrusting her with the investigation, an order Gale readily accepts. Her duty is signed. Gale faces Mason, commending him on a job well done. She apologizes for the oversight, admitting her disbelief that a lich actually appeared, and assures him that the recovered item will be kept securely at the guild. He later reconnects with Luna, asking if they are now heading to report to the king. With firm resolve, she confirms they are and urges him to make his report immediately. As they begin to walk, a loud rumble from Mason's stomach interrupts their serious mission. He sheepishly notes that they haven't eaten anything and suggests they find something to eat first. He turns to Luna, asking what she normally eats. She seems to think for a moment before replying that she eats the same things as everyone else. Suddenly, Mason freezes, his attention caught by something ahead. Luna notices his abrupt halt and asks if something is wrong. His gaze is fixed on two figures approaching down the corridor. One is a young man with light hair and a cape. The other is completely obscured by a white, hooded cloak. The caped man asks his companion if they know the boy staring at them, and the cloaked figure begins to respond. Before they can finish, Mason's face contorts with shock and recognition. He cries out their names, Shile, Miro-san. The young man, Shile, looks back, his own expression one of clear surprise. He is greeted with overwhelming enthusiasm by his two acquaintances. Shile asks if he's been doing okay and eating well, while the hooded Miro-san adds that they've been worried about him. Mason, caught between them, offers a simple confirmation that he is fine. Following the warm reunion, Shile's attention shifts to the girl standing with Mason, asking who she is. Mason explains that they have formed a party. The girl, pulling back her hood slightly, introduces herself as Launa and offers a polite greeting. Launa's expression turns serious as she looks on. She quietly wonders if Mason is still clumsy and tripping over nothing, then tells the others to take care of him. She quickly dismisses her own concern, muttering to herself that she is fine. Her comment about Mason's clumsiness piques Shile's curiosity. He leans closer, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, and asks if they have met somewhere before. Launa turns away, flatly stating that it must be his imagination. Shile quickly changes the subject, cheerfully announcing that they are going fishing and invites Mason and Launa to join. Mason observes that Launa seems a bit awkward. However, her demeanor shifts in an instant, and with unexpected intensity, she declares, "Let's go." Pleased by her sudden enthusiasm, Shile declares that it seems they will all get along well. He introduces his party, himself a very strong swordsman, Miro, the sage, and Launa, the mage. As he speaks, only Miro-san perceives a subtle wave of hostility emanating from Launa. The group arrives at a serene fishing spot by a wide, calm river. Shile shouts in delight, celebrating that they have the entire place to themselves. He immediately turns to Miro-san, demanding the fishing rod. With a tired expression, Miro-san reminds him that such things don't simply appear just because he asks for them. In response, Miro-san explains that they don't have much magic power left. Despite this, they conjure two simple fishing rods, imbued with a strength buff, and ask who will be the one to use them. Without hesitation, Launa steps forward and volunteers to take one of the rods. Mason, surprised by her strange motivation, asks if she's good at fishing. Nearby, Shile reminisces about fishing with his father as a child. She glares at Shile, declaring that she won't lose their impromptu fishing competition. He smirks back, vowing to show her a fish larger than any she has ever seen. In the background, a nonplussed, Mason asks Miro-san what they should do, and Miro-san calmly suggests they get a fire started. As the two anglers faced off, he turns to Miro-san, expressing his astonishment that they know Launa is a princess. Miro-san confirms it, remarking that there's a bit of backstory and that Mason must have a lot going on to have formed a party with royalty in just a few days. The mention of his new party triggers a jolt of realization in Mason. He stares into the distance, a look of shock spreading across his face as he understands he must have used a skill without even being aware of it. Miro-san watches his reaction, their expression unreadable. Shaking off the disquieting thought, he turns back to Miro-san, flustered. He quickly changes the subject, saying that he's just glad Miro-san is doing well. Miro-san offers a gentle smile, noting that the princess seems to be happy too. Meanwhile, by the water's edge, the competition had stalled. Shile observes that there hasn't been so much as a twitch on the line. Launa quietly affirms his assessment. Her patience wearing thin, Launa complains that the bait she brought isn't good enough, as she is determined to catch something truly big. Miro-san overhears, simply asking, "Is that so?" In response, Shile plunges his hand into the shallows and snatches a small, wriggling fish, offering it as superior bait. Launa looks on stunned. At the same time, Miro-san offers their own aid, suggesting they can make the fishing line disappear entirely. With renewed purpose, the two anglers sit by the water once more, their lines cast in silent anticipation. Suddenly, the tranquility is shattered. Both Launa's and Shile's eyes fly wide with shock as an immense force takes hold of the line. The source of the disturbance erupts from the water. A colossal fish, so powerful that it yanks a stunned Shile right off the ground and into the air. He laughed with exhilaration, marveling at the sheer size of the creature that had pulled him from the ground. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Morosan held fast to the fishing rod as a monstrous, multi-eyed eel erupted from the water's surface, its immense body dwarfing the hooded figure. Their initial composure shattered. Morosan stared in horror, sweat beading on their face as they cried out in disbelief at the sheer number of eyes covering the creature's body. On the shore, the group marvels at their impressive catch. 2 enormous fish, one a long, serpentine seven-gazer, and the other a massive Landria giant catfish. Beaming with excitement, Shile clasps Gile's hand, congratulating her on the amazing feat. She laughs, returning the praise, telling him he was awesome too. He then remarks on how quickly Gale and her companion seem to have gotten along. Moreau, watching from the side with Mason, simply suggests that perhaps their vibes just match. Their attention then turns to the practical matter of their reward. Moreau wonders aloud what they should do with the fish, and Mason, eyes gleaming, proposes they cook and eat a portion of it, suggesting they split the task. At this suggestion, both Gale and Shile gasp in unison, their faces alight with sudden, shocked realization. A simple meal has just become a fish cooking showdown between Moreau and Mason. With the challenge accepted, the roles are assigned. Moreau will take on the Landria giant catfish, while Mason will prepare the seven-gazer. Standing before a large cauldron, Mason can't help but feel a surge of nervous energy. Moreau is the first to act, deftly slicing into the catfish to reveal a perfect cut of meat. Mason, meanwhile, begins his own process more methodically, rubbing the seven-gazer with salt to remove its slime. He then skewers the prepared fish, grilling it slowly over a crackling fire. As the aroma begins to rise, Gale watches with watering eyes, declaring that she has a very good feeling about how it will taste. Across from him, Moreau adds a finishing touch, sprinkling a fine white powder, flour, over their own creation. The tantalizing smells prove too much for Shile, who cries out, asking when they can finally eat. Moreau, focused on the task, calmly tells him to wait just a little longer. The hooded figure chuckles good-naturedly as Shile tells them to quit messing around and help out. Nearby, Luna marvels at the impressive outdoor feast being prepared. In response, Mason gets to work, announcing it's time for the finishing touches. He and Moreau apply the final preparations to their respective fish, one sizzling in hot oil while the other receives a thick, dark glaze. Moments later, the dishes are complete. A platter reveals the 2 finished creations, a golden brown, crispy fried Landria catfish, and a glistening sweet and spicy grilled seven-gazer. The sight of the completed meals leaves Shile and Moreau speechless. Their eyes widen in awe, amazed that the giant fish from earlier could be transformed into such an incredible-looking feast. Heeding the invitation to eat, Shile takes a large bite of the grilled fish. He immediately exclaims that it's amazing, praising the meat's springy texture and the skin's perfect crispiness. Moreau, tasting the fried catfish, is equally impressed, remarking on its fluffy, juicy meat and seriously addictive flavor. Seeing their reactions, Mason suggests to his fellow cook that they should eat as well. Amid the cheerful meal, a question is posed about how Luna and Mason ended up forming a party together, though the speaker wonders how much of the story they are permitted to share. Moreau explains that Mason lent them a hand. Mason humbly confirms this, adding that he just wanted to help a little and also has something he needs to find out. Shile thanks him, then reveals that Rondo suddenly left to see his master, leaving them alone for the day. The mention of the hero's sudden departure is unsettling. Shile admits to having a bad feeling about it, unable to shake the question of what Rondo is truly up to. Moreau gives voice to this concern, suggesting aloud that Rondo might be up to no good. The accusation startles Mason. Shile quickly tells Moreau not to scare him, but the hooded figure simply apologizes, expressing hope that it's just a case of overthinking. The hooded figure pulls Mason aside, asking for a moment of his time for an important discussion. Mason, seated on the ground while Luna and Shile rest nearby, readily agrees, inquiring what the matter is. Before the conversation can begin, however, Luna interrupts with an earnest plea, asking if they could stop using formal speech with her. Mason looks at her, puzzled by the sudden request. She explains that since she is being targeted by demons, she wants to feel closer to her companions. He considers her point, and she adds that as party members, formal language creates an unnecessary distance. Mason concedes that she's right, noting that it's not as if her royal lineage is obvious to everyone anyway. Encouraged by his understanding, she insists with sudden intensity that he should simply call her Luna. Startled, Mason stammers her name in response. Her expression immediately brightens with joy. She eagerly asks him to say it again, and then again, prompting a back and forth of their names. She spins around, radiating a happiness that Mason observes with a small smile. With their bond strengthened, the time comes for the 2 groups to part ways. Mason and Luna wish Moreau and Shile good luck, and Shile cheerfully returns the sentiment. From a pebbled shore, they wave their final farewells as Moreau and Shile begin their journey, with Shile calling out one last time for them to take care. Watching them depart, Luna remarks that they were good people admitting she may have misjudged the situation when she first heard of Mason's exile. Mason agrees, glad to see them well, and quietly wonders if they will ever cross paths again. Elsewhere, the man known as Rondo stares intently into the distance. His older companion notices his fixation and asks what is wrong. Rondo tersely replies that it is nothing, but his gaze remains fixed in the direction Mason and Luna have gone. Elsewhere, another powerful figure watches from the shadows. The hero's master, a man with a severe expression and slick-back hair, fixes his gaze upon a distant scene. He observes Mason and Luna walking together, the two of them sharing a moment of unguarded happiness. Luna, her face framed by her hood, beams up at Mason, who returns her smile, both completely oblivious to the intense scrutiny they are under. With a grunt of effort, Mason digs his heels in, his sword straining against the crushing weight of a massive, shadowy beast's clawed paw. The creature's fanged maw looms over him as he desperately holds it at bay. As steel grinds against claw, he activates a skill, intending to plunder the monster's strength. He pushes the beast back, his expression hardening with focus. He tells himself to concentrate, to not worry about Rondo for now. The memory of a confrontation from a few hours ago flashes through his mind. He had been walking with a new, hooded companion. She mused that they were officially a party now, though it didn't quite feel real yet. She mentioned that His Majesty had been crying, to which Mason nonchalantly replied that his father was always like that. As they continued, Mason felt a surge of determination, thinking that things were finally starting and he needed to sort out his skills. Their optimistic mood was shattered when they turned a corner and came face to face with Rondo, who looked at them with disdain. He immediately accosted Mason, calling him an eyesore. Mason shot back that they were party members, formed for the specific reason of defeating the demon tribe, and warned Rondo not to mock them. Rondo scoffed at the idea of them being friends. His companion then stepped forward, acknowledging that Rondo was the hero recognized by the king. She asked him directly what the goal of his party was, stating that their own goal was to defeat the demon tribe. Rondo simply laughed. His amusement turned to a dark sneer. He told them not to make him laugh, declaring that he alone would be the one to defeat the demon king. Mason retorted that they also had people to protect, questioning what Rondo even knew of them. Before the argument could escalate, Mason's companion shouted at Rondo, her voice sharp with indignation. She challenged him directly, asking if he hadn't become a hero for the very purpose of protecting the people. She vehemently denies the accusation, shouting that they have the wrong person. Rondo's companion looks on in confusion as Rondo himself squints, questioning if he knows her from somewhere. The hooded woman declares that even if she were a former comrade, someone who oppresses others is undeserving of their role. His patience worn thin, Rondo grabs his companion by the collar, warning him not to get cocky. He then turns to Mason and the woman, demanding to know why they are playing around before telling his companion, Leaf, that they are leaving. As they depart, an older man with them recognizes Mason and promises they will meet again. Mason clutches his arm, wincing in pain from a previous injury, and wonders why Rondo would say that someone doesn't even understand himself. Later, deep within a forest, Mason realizes he let his guard down as a beast lunges. He uses a skill, Swift Step, to dodge and urgently calls out to his companion, Luna. She responds immediately, her hands poised for action. The attacking beasts are thrown into the air, their yelps echoing through the trees as they are struck down by an unseen force. With the threat neutralized, Luna notices a terrible wound on Mason's arm. He admits that even though it was a guild request, something felt wrong about it, especially since the creatures had only recently started attacking people. He trails off, lost in thought about the hero. Luna quickly tells him not to move, her focus entirely on treating his injury as she realizes he wasn't able to concentrate during the fight. He apologizes, clarifying that his distraction isn't due to a lack of trust in Lutz's magic. He explains that while they've been gathering intelligence through quests, he believes it's time they confront the demons directly. Luna reassures him, explaining that she and her sibling, Lutz, share a divine blessing that allows her to sense his well-being. Because of this, she knows he is currently safe. She adds that they both rely heavily on Mason's skills. She continues, suggesting it's time for the two of them to consider what they can achieve as a pair. She recalls her father, and another person, teaching her that a party is more than just fighting together. Because of this, she insists they must prepare and strengthen their abilities. Moved, Mason looks at her, thinking how truly strong she is to endure so much. He turned to his companion with a bright, determined smile, expressing his gratitude. Thanks, Luna. In response, she returned a gentle smile, immediately shifting their focus to the task at hand. She declared that it was time to concentrate on finding the Red Wolf. Bolstered by her words, Mason pumped himself up, affirming that this was the right spirit for the hunt. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Luna voiced her surprise, wondering how there could be more enemies even after they'd taken down so many. Mason considered this, suggesting that there were likely more of the same type of wolf they had fought earlier. He scanned the dense foliage, noting that despite the large number of regular wolves, their true target, the Red Wolf, had yet to appear. He concluded that it must have a den hidden somewhere nearby. Before Mason and Luna, A vast pack of black wolves gathers, their sheer numbers overwhelming. At their center sits a large, white wolf, its presence commanding the horde as Mason questions how they could possibly face such a multitude. He despairs, wondering how just the two of them are supposed to defeat so many. The white wolf fixes its gaze on them, a third, diamond-shaped, eye glowing on its forehead as it lets out a low, menacing growl. As the white wolf lets out a piercing howl, Mason watches in disbelief as the pack begins to move, their individual forms clumping together and merging into a single, chaotic mass. The fusion completes, revealing a single, colossal creature with armored plating and a bird-like skull. Both adventurers stand frozen, dwarfed by the sheer, monstrous scale of their new foe. Without warning, the beast lunges forward with impossible speed. Its tail whips through the air, forcing Luna to cry out as she narrowly evades the attack. He watches the blur of motion, stunned by its quickness. The creature glances back, and Mason clutches his chest, realizing the immense danger they are in. His mind races for strategy. He attempts to activate his unique skill, but a cold dread washes over him as he understands. He cannot plunder anything from this enemy. With his primary ability rendered useless, he falls back on conventional magic. As the monster turns its attention toward him, Mason crouches low, beginning to channel energy for a fireball spell. But he is far too slow. The creature strikes with overwhelming force, slamming into him and shattering his spell before it can form. He cries out in pain, realizing his magic failed. The impact sends him skidding violently across the ground, leaving him sprawled in the dirt, defeated and vulnerable. He lay injured on the ground, his thoughts focused on a single imperative: protect Luna. Beside him, she voiced her growing panic, asking what they should do as her protective magic was about to fail against the looming monster. In response, he pushed himself to his feet, proposing a desperate plan. He suggested they try to cut the creature, determined to make a final stand. However, the attack had a horrifyingly familiar result. Just as with the Treant, the amalgam's severed flesh did not simply fall away. It regenerated, spawning new, smaller wolves from its own body. As their situation worsened, a new figure arrived, a young elf who announced he had an idea and would return shortly. Seizing the moment, Mason turned to Luna, informing her that he needed her help as well. He then broke into a sprint, charging directly toward the primary beast. Closing the distance, he shouted to Luna that he was counting on her. She affirmed her readiness, moving to engage the smaller wolves and create the opening he needed. Her diversion was successful. With the smaller wolves contained, the main creature was thrown off balance, revealing a glowing core embedded in its flank. Mason realized this was their chance. He lunged forward, shouting a challenge as he drove his weapon directly into the exposed weak point. The monster recoiled as a brilliant light erupted from the impact. The blow was fatal. The amalgam's shadowy form destabilized completely, shattering into countless fragments that dissolved into nothing. In the aftermath, only the creature's core remained, a dark, hexagonal object that pulsed once before sinking into a spreading pool of black ichor and vanishing completely. In the aftermath of the battle, Luna expresses her amazement at Mason's accomplishment. He, however, clutches his bleeding arm and warns her not to move, admitting that his mana is almost completely depleted. She reassures him, stating she can manage with some auto-healing. But as he looks at his wounds, he realizes her magic won't be enough, a flicker of concern crossing his face. His thoughts are interrupted by a faint cry for help. Luna urges him not to move, but he insists he's fine and starts walking toward the sound, recognizing the voice as that of a child in pain. He warns Luna to stay back as he approaches the source of the cries, calling out to the unseen person and asking if they are hurt. The figure is a young beast person, clutching a grievously wounded leg. They recoil in fear, stammering that it hurts and pleading that they have nothing to offer. As Luna catches up, the youth's plea changes. With tears welling in their eyes, they look up at the pair and beg them to save someone named Khloe. Their desperate gaze shifts towards the dark woods as they call out Khloe's name again. It is clear that another danger, something else entirely, is unfolding within the forest. As Mason and Luna journey through the woods, their beastkin companion, perched on Mason's back, excitedly points ahead. He can see their destination. Mason peers over a stone wall, his eyes widening at the sight of a large stone gate built directly into a cliffside. He realizes this must be the place. The young beastkin, Ek, joyfully calls out the names Gold, Jude, as they approach. Their arrival is met with caution. A stern-faced beastkin guard, holding a polearm, steps forward and demands they identify themselves and state their origin. Recognizing the injured child, the guard named Gould urgently orders his companion, Jude, to take Ek to the treehouse immediately. Jude confirms the command without hesitation. He then turns his attention to Mason and Luna, his tone shifting completely. He thanks them profusely for saving Ek, admitting he doesn't know how he could possibly repay them. He quickly ushers the two of them inside the gate. Once inside, Mason is struck by the view. A whole village, with houses built on different levels, is carved into the massive cliff face. He murmurs in awe, realizing this is the Beastkin village. He marvels at the incredible craftsmanship required to build such a place. His thoughts are interrupted by an elderly Beastkin with a long beard and mustache who introduces himself as Ron Lori, the village chief. He confirms that he heard they saved Ek, whom he calls his family. The chief's voice is heavy with emotion as he explains his belief that Ek had gone somewhere they could never reach, a place from which he thought they would never see him return. Overcome with relief and gratitude, Chief Ron Lori bows deeply to Mason and Luna, offering them his truest thanks. Mason looks on, surprised by the depth of their appreciation. The other villagers gather around, eagerly asking for their names and offering to do anything they can to help. The chief gently calms the enthusiastic crowd as Luna introduces herself, followed by Mason. After the introductions, Luna begins to ask what brought them to this forest. Before she can finish, the chief warmly invites them to come rest at their home first. He sits across from the village chief, explaining that they are adventurers who are hunting monsters. The chief, who mentions he is feeling much better, reacts with surprise upon hearing they fought a red wolf. Mason confirms this, adding that the creatures were tough. Curious, the chief asks for a description of the red wolf they encountered. Mason recounts that it had a huge white body, led a pack of other wolves, and was incredibly strong. He continues his account with rising agitation, recalling how a single swipe from the beast's front leg was powerful enough to send them flying. The chief listens intently to the harrowing details. As he speaks, Luna interjects with a startling revelation. The creature they fought, for all its strength, was likely just a juvenile. The news leaves Mason stunned, unable to comprehend that such power belonged to a mere baby. She elaborates, describing a true adult red wolf as being far larger than a juvenile, its body wreathed in a menacing red and black flame-like glow. Its full strength, she adds, is completely unknown. The chief's expression darkens with sorrow at this description. He reveals that his own daughter, Khloe, was also attacked by a red wolf, his voice trailing off as he looks toward the two adventurers. His sorrow turns into a desperate plea. Acknowledging the selfishness of asking more of them after they just saved Ek, he begs them to save his daughter. In response to the plea, Mason and Luna exchange a look of silent, steely resolve. Their purpose becomes clear as Mason states that their original mission was, in fact, to take down the red wolf. Their immediate agreement brings a wave of relief and gratitude to the chief. Luna places a reassuring hand on Mason's shoulder and confirms to the tearful man that, of course, they will help. His preparations were nearly complete. A female Beastkin informed Luna that her mana had stabilized, then turned to him, noting that she had patched him up as well. With a warm smile, she dismissed her efforts as the only help she could offer, confirming her work was done. As they stood ready to depart, the young boy, Ek, approached him with a small, wrapped item. He held it out, asking Mason to take it. He accepted the gift, promising to treasure it. Ek explained that it was small, but had a blessing woven into it, a fact Mason immediately sensed from its powerful aura. The boy then looked at them earnestly, pleading for them to come back safely. Mason and Luna smiled, reassuring him that they would return with his sister, Khloe. Just as they were about to leave the village, a voice called out, halting their departure. Two Beastkin men, Gold and Jude, stepped forward, asking to join them. Jude explained that his sharp nose could help track the creature. Luna expressed hesitation, worried about letting them face such a risk, but Mason recognized the value of their help and gratefully accepted. With their party now expanded to 4, they set off. Mason glanced back one last time at the villagers waving goodbye from the gate. Deeper in the woods, Jude remarked on his disbelief that they had managed to take down a juvenile red wolf. Mason confirmed that they had fought one and had somehow destroyed its core. Gould then provided a grim history, explaining that the village had been attacked long ago, with few survivors ever returning. He added that no one truly knows how an adult red wolf attacks, as no one has ever seen one and lived. His story prompted Mason to ask why Khloe had disappeared. The reason was simple and tragic. She had saved her little brother, Ek. When the boy got lost in the woods, she stayed behind to create an opportunity for him to escape. The explanation painted a harrowing scene in Mason's mind. Khloe, injured and on the ground, screaming at a terrified Ek to run for his life. In that final, desperate moment, she had activated a skill, Swift Step, to physically throw her brother away from the danger, ensuring his survival at the cost of her own. A young woman, Rebecca, gasps for breath, apologizing for dragging her companion, Luca, into the unfolding danger. He reassures her that it isn't her fault and firmly instructs her to take a small girl named Katie and find safety. As he turns to leave, Rebecca calls out his name, asking what he intends to do. With his back to her, Luca explains that since he got her involved, he will be the one to settle things with their adversary. His expression hardens with resolve, his gaze cast downward as he offers a quiet apology, seemingly for the violence that is to come. The source of the conflict is revealed. A man in armor named Adolf, tormented by the spectral image of a colossal, thorn-crowned skeleton. The entity's voice echoes in his mind, commanding him to attack, to trample and torment the weak, lest he be deemed weak himself. Overwhelmed, Adolf lets out a scream of pure agony. Luca stares back, his own eyes burning with cold fury. As Adolf's face contorts with rage from the curse, Luca cuts through his cries with a sharp command. Shut up. He then surges forward, intercepting a powerful overhead slash from Adolf's massive sword. The force of the impact sends cracks through the ground beneath them. Roaring that his opponent is annoying, Adolf unleashes a sweeping horizontal strike. Luca deftly drops into a crouch, the huge blade whistling harmlessly over his head. Using the opening, he springs up into a powerful spinning kick that sends the armored man flying. Luca lands perfectly balanced while Adolf crashes to the ground, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. From a safe distance, Rebecca and Katie watch the duel unfold. Rebecca's eyes widen in horrified recognition. She identifies the dark markings on Adolf's face as the very same curse that Luca once bore, a curse inflicted by the enemy that razed Luca's home village to the ground. The other girls ask if Luca will be all right, and Rebecca forces a confident smile, assuring them that he has become very strong. Internally, however, she is deeply worried, knowing that this curse is the source of his greatest trauma. As she watches, a faint light begins to emanate from the battlefield. Suddenly, a young woman in a large witch's hat appears, thrusting her hands forward as orbs of crackling energy form around them. With a determined cry, she unleashes the spell. From a distance, Luca watches the unexpected intervention, his expression one of pure surprise. The magical blast slams into Adolf, who staggers from the force and demands to know who attacked him. Luca, however, recognizes the witch, exclaiming her name in disbelief. The witch retorts that this is simply payback for him tying her up earlier. As the chaos intensifies, Rebecca leaps into action, vaulting over Adolf. She declares fiercely that she will not allow him to get in Luca's way. Nearby, a spiky-haired man watches the scene unfold, while on the ground, a frightened Katie calls out for her sister. The spiky-haired man sees his opportunity and turns his attention to the vulnerable child. He advances on Katie with a knife drawn, announcing his intention to make her his hostage once again. Terrified, Katie can only flinch away from him. His threat is cut short as a metal wash basin smashes squarely into his face. He stumbles back, utterly bewildered as to why such an object is even on the battlefield. From a short distance, Rebecca glares, having thrown the basin herself, as she furiously tells him to shut up. The impact sends the man crashing to the ground, knocked unconscious. An unfortunate casualty, a small, one-eyed slime creature, is squashed flat beneath where the basin landed. Adolf, still standing, grits his teeth in frustration, enraged that despite his efforts, the fight is still not over. While traveling through the forest, the red-haired Beastkin suddenly stops, his hand flying to his face as he senses a change. He announces that the wind smells different, alerting his companions, Khloe and Mason, that something is near. Below, the rustling of unseen movement through the undergrowth confirms his suspicion. Mason peers into the dense woods, unable to spot the source of the disturbance. A shout suddenly rings out. The threat is above them. Perched ominously on a high branch is a hulking, bipedal creature with a body of black and red. They recognize it instantly, the red wolf. The beast unleashes a silent, piercing shriek that assaults their minds. The psychic wave hits the party with staggering force, causing Mason, Khloe, Ek, and their companion to clutch their heads, their faces contorted in agony, as if their skulls were splitting apart. As they struggle to recover, a pack of smaller, white-armored wolf-like creatures emerges, gathering before them. Mason realizes the sheer number of young ones is overwhelming. He turns to Luna, telling her they'll have to fight as they did before, but his expression betrays his doubt about their chances against so many. Despite the chaos, the massive red wolf remains perched and motionless, simply observing. Mason watches it, a deep sense of unease growing as he questions what the creature is doing. He then notices something deeply unsettling. As the red wolf descends, even the young ones show no resistance, standing completely still before the larger beast. To his absolute horror, the red wolf opens its cavernous maw and devours one of the smaller creatures whole. The sound of crunching armor echoes as Mason stares, frozen in shock. The entire group is stunned by the act of cannibalism. The red-haired Beastkin shouts in disbelief, questioning how this could be happening if they are a pack. Khloe, her expression grim, states that she has a theory. Her chilling hypothesis is that the young ones were never part of a pack at all. They were simply being stored up, raised as a living larder meant to feed the massive creature. The terrible truth of her words settles over them. If she is right, they're not facing a pack of wolves, but a single, horrifyingly intelligent predator that has just finished its meal and now turns its attention to them. He stares, sweat beading on his temple, as the monstrous red wolf looms before him, its form a terrifying silhouette of pure malice. The sheer pressure emanating from the beast is overwhelming. He admits to himself that this creature is on a completely different level from anything they've ever faced. The instinct to run screams in his mind. It is a true monster, a hulking mass of shadow and rage that seems to warp the very air around it. The overwhelming power of this new foe triggers a painful memory of a past duel. He recalls the sting of defeat, the moment his own attack was effortlessly parried, leaving him utterly defenseless. The thought echoes in his mind. He cannot win. The memory plays out, showing his younger self standing frozen, sword in hand, before the victorious, armored opponent who had so easily bested him. His attention snaps back to the present as the red-haired Beastkin breaks formation. Cursing, the young warrior charges forward, determined to distract the monster before it can act. The creature lets out a low, guttural gurgle, its attention turning towards the new threat. He leaps through the air, but his reckless charge earns a sharp rebuke from Khloe. She calls him an idiot, warning that he'll get himself killed since they have no idea what the monster is capable of. As the two Beastkin argue, Luna takes command. She instructs them to watch carefully for any weak spots, while she and Ek prepare the same tactic they used on the smaller creatures. But Mason knows there's no time to be scared. He activates his storage art, his hands glowing with magical energy. He considers his options, realizing the limitations of his abilities. The loot skill didn't work on the amalgams, so it's unlikely to affect this one. He resolves to throw everything he has at it, activating Swift Step and Body Enhance Plus. This, he concludes, is the absolute most he can do. With his body enhanced, he lunges forward, closing the distance in an instant. He perceives the monster's movements as slow, but a sudden realization strikes him with chilling certainty. That perceived slowness is a lie. He lunged forward, sword poised to strike, but the red wolf's massive claw descended with blinding speed, swatting his blade aside with overwhelming force. The sheer velocity of the counterattack left him momentarily stunned, his eyes wide with the shocking realization of the beast's true agility. Just as the claw was about to connect, he was suddenly yanked backward off his feet. He looked down to see a furry tail wrapped firmly around his waist, pulling him to safety. Landing a short distance away, he saw his rescuer, the Beastkin warrior, Khloe. With a determined look, she asked if he was all right. Mason, still on the ground, could only stare up at her in recognition. Elsewhere, in a different time, another conflict reached its climax. A young man, named Luca, stood before a colossal skeletal entity wearing a crown of thorns, its bony fingers reaching out. Between them lay the defeated, cursed warrior, Adolf. His expression was cold and distant as a voice seemed to echo in his mind, questioning if he was laughing at their fight. The insinuation made his skin crawl. He stood over the fallen Adolf, who desperately pleaded for him to wait. Ignoring the terrified gasps of their companions, Luca declared that he was done having anything to do with him. Luca's eyes burned with cold fury as he stated that a curse is an enemy. Panicked, Adolf offered to leave the party, begging for his departure to be accepted. The skeletal entity's words resounded, claiming that forgiveness is born from weakness. Memories of Adolf's cruelty surfaced, his declaration that he had no room for Luca, his condescending claim to be training him out of pity, and his contempt for their companion, Rebecca. As the entity's bony finger pointed forward, a vision of a serene woman appeared, remarking how fortunate it was that Luca found the statue. With his gaze lowered, Luca clutched his sword, his mind made up. He didn't need forgiveness. His mind replayed a pivotal moment, a divine, serene woman offering him a chance to become the goddess's proxy. A small, amphibian-like creature had asked if he wanted to join them, while an old man simply prayed for his success. The memory echoed with a single name, his own, Luca, as his hands clenched with renewed purpose. He looked at Rebecca, his resolve hardening. He could not allow those words, that promise, to be stained. He knew what he had to do. Seeing the determination in his eyes, Rebecca's own filled with tears as she offered a simple, heartfelt thank you. In response, he lunged forward, channeling a surge of dark power into his fist. The blow connected with Adolf in a blinding flash of impact, sending the cursed warrior reeling. He stood over the fallen man, sword now in hand, his voice cold. He would make Adolf pay for what he had done to Rebecca and the others. With that vow, he invoked a skill, thrusting his hand forward as raw power erupted, aimed directly at Adolf. The command was absolute. Remove curse. Mason finally meets the Beastkin warrior, Khloe. He observes that she is completely battered, a sentiment she confirms is mutual. She addresses the assembled group, including Mason, Luna, and her fellow Beastkin, Jude and Gold. Khloe expresses her wish to celebrate their reunion, but insists they must first focus on the threat of the Red Wolf. Her comrades voice their concern, seeing she is all right. The creature in question is a terrifying sight. It is described as exceptionally strong, even among wolf-class monsters, and its magical energy is off the charts. Understanding the threat, Mason turns to Luna, Khloe, and the red-haired Beastkin warrior. He formally asks them to lend him their strength, stating that he is counting on all of them. With the plans set, one of the warriors steps forward, shouting to draw the monster's attention. Nearby, Mason crouches low, ready for the engagement to begin. The taunt works. The red-haired Beastkin challenges the Red Wolf to come and get him, and the massive shadow beast lunges forward with blinding speed. As it commits to the attack, Khloe leaps from a high branch, descending upon the creature. She mocks its sluggishness as she prepares to strike its exposed form. Her powerful strike connects, causing the Red Wolf's shadowy body to sizzle and evaporate at the point of impact. Despite the direct hit, the beast is not finished. As the other Beastkin warriors brace themselves, shadowy tendrils erupt from the Red Wolf's body, lashing out violently. The sudden counterattack is too swift. Khloe can only watch in horror, crying out Luna's name as the elf is suddenly enveloped by the creature's shadowy mass. She watches as Luna, still ensnared by the shadowy beast, musters her strength to conjure a brilliant sphere of light, signaling that she is ready. The light erupts in a blinding flash, forcing Khloe to shield her eyes for a moment. As the red wolf recoils with a pained howl, disoriented by the intense magic, she seizes the opening, shouting her thanks to Luna as she charges forward. Closing the distance instantly, she unleashes her signature technique, the Kitsune Slash, driving her attack directly into the monster's flank. The blow lands true, staggering the beast. From nearby, Mason observes with astonishment, realizing her strike had damaged the very hide that shattered his own blade. However, the creature is not defeated. A low hiss emanates from its shadowy form as the wound from the slash begins to seal itself. Recovering with unnatural speed, the red wolf retaliates, whipping its shadow limbs in a wide, violent arc that forces Khloe to leap away. Watching the exchange, Mason's eyes narrow with determination. He resolves to execute a new strategy, but as he prepares to move, he is seized by a familiar, dreadful paralysis. His body refuses to obey. In that moment of vulnerability, Khloe lands directly in front of him, shielding him from the imminent threat. She glances back, asking if he is all right. Drenched in a cold sweat, Mason can only apologize, admitting his failure and thanking her for the help as the red wolf looms in the background. The red wolf crashes to the ground with a guttural groan, momentarily stunned by Khloe's assault. The onlooking Beastkin are shocked, with one exclaiming that Lady Khloe managed to send a creature flying. The initial shock gives way to a flicker of hope. Luna believes this could be their chance to win, but Khloe, her expression still tense, warns that it is not over yet. Her caution proves justified as she stares in disbelief, realizing that her powerful blow failed to even crack the monster's shadowy armor. With no time to waste, she lunges forward again, a desperate cry of her name echoing from the sidelines. She closes the distance in an instant, positioning herself above the recovering beast. As the red wolf's form coalesces once more, she knows they must break through its defenses. Her strike lands, creating a small but visible fissure in the creature's dark hide. From his position, Mason sees the cracked form and cries out her name as the beast lets out a furious roar. The sight of the opening breaks him from his paralysis. He thrusts his hand forward, shouting a single word, "Plunder." A brilliant light erupts from the red wolf's body, and he stares in awe at the incredible power he has just unleashed. He feels a surge of new power coursing through him. He has successfully stolen the monster's skills, acquiring both its fire breath and a greatly enhanced version of body enhancement. This newfound power steals his resolve. He clenches his fist, realizing that even though his sword is gone, the stolen breath attack gives him a way to fight back. He leaps into the air, diving directly towards the enraged red wolf as it unleashes a torrent of shadowy tendrils from its body. His attack lands, but the red wolf does not fall. Instead, the monstrous beast groans, its shadowy form chomping down on empty air as it reels from the impact. He watches in disbelief as the creature remains standing. It's still moving, despite the damage it has sustained. The creature's form appears unstable, as if it's about to melt and crumble away, yet it stubbornly clings to existence. Suddenly, a brilliant flash erupts from a charm he carries. He recognizes it instantly. Light magic from Eek's charm, striking the shadowy beast with holy energy. The holy light is too much for the monster. Its dark form violently dissolves, splattering into nothingness. With the monster gone, the immediate danger passes. Mason and Khloe stand side by side, panting heavily, the adrenaline of the fight slowly fading. They stand together with the others, surveying the now quiet battlefield. Mason, still catching his breath, can hardly believe it. They actually defeated the red wolf. He feels his body go numb again, but manages to speak, crediting Khloe for their survival. She smiles, relieved, stating that the village can finally know peace. The red-haired Beastkin looks on, impressed, confirming that Mason truly accomplished the impossible. His relief is cut short as Khloe suddenly crumples to the ground. He turns in alarm, calling out her name. She looks up, her voice filled with relief rather than pain. She asks if the light was Eek's warding spell, her primary concern met. Eek is safe. She recovers from her collapse, standing alongside Luna and Mason with a gentle, relieved smile now that the danger is past. A collective sentiment echoes among the survivors, a heartfelt desire to go home, all of them together. Upon returning to the Beastkin village, Khloe immediately moves to comfort a fellow villager who is weeping with relief, while the rescued children look on. One of the young boys, his eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears, looks up with an expression of pure, overwhelming gratitude. The red-haired Beastkin warrior pulls the child into a reassuring hug before turning to the group and inviting everyone to a celebratory feast, urging them to dig in. He gestures toward a table piled high with an astonishing amount of food. Mason and Luna can only stare in awe, exclaiming that the spread looks amazing. When they express concern that it's too much, the village chief smiles warmly, assuring them that, of course, it is the least they can do. As they eat, the villagers praise them, calling them the heroes of the village for having saved their families. Mason, smiling brightly, deflects the praise. He insists that Gerudo, Jude, and the others couldn't have done it without Khloe, and that Eek played a crucial role as well. The red-haired Beastkin listens, remarking that he can't believe they would fight so hard for their village. Mason then turns to Luna and explains that pursuing the Red Wolf was a quest their party had accepted. He explained that the quest was to hunt the Red Wolf, but the guild had apparently mistaken a juvenile for the real thing. He noted that things have been strange lately, as it's rare for adult monsters to make an appearance. The village chief listened, his expression thoughtful. He conceded that monsters have indeed become much more aggressive these days. He then shared a rumor he had picked up, mentioning that a human hero has been seen going in and out of the forest quite often. He warned that something is starting to happen. The mention of a hero brought an image to Mason's mind. Rondo. As Luna watched him with concern, Mason wondered what his former companion could be planning. His thoughts solidifying on the new threat, he turned to Khloe. He acknowledged it was a lot to ask, but formally requested that she consider joining their party, stating that they truly need her strength. Khloe processed the offer. She knew that joining them would be an incredible asset, but she hesitated, questioning if she wasn't essential to the well-being of her own village. Mason reassured her that Gerudo and Jude could protect the village. He then revealed that something had come up which he needed to investigate elsewhere. In response, Khloe shared her own motivation. With peace restored, she felt a duty to uncover the mystery of why nearby villagers had vanished overnight and sought her father's agreement. Her father cautioned that such a path would draw her too close to the shadows, questioning her fortitude. Though Khloe hesitated for a moment, her resolve became absolute. She declared that she cannot protect the one she loves by remaining in the dark. Accepting her decision, Mason warned both Khloe and the chief that their journey would likely take them near demon territory and would be fraught with danger. The chief then turned to his daughter, asking if she would still join them, knowing the risks involved. The chief looked upon her with pride, stating that he knew she would agree. With finality, Khloe confirmed her decision. Yes, I am. Her father, seeing her resolve, offers his final words of support. He acknowledges that she is truly set on this path, but reminds her with gentle finality that she can always come home. With her father's blessing secured, she turns to her new companions, her expression bright with determination. She declares that she looks forward to fighting alongside all of them. She formally introduces herself as Khloe, assuring them they can count on her for close-quarters combat. Luna responds with equal enthusiasm, welcoming her and stating that she is Launa, a specialist in white magic and healing arts. Mason then introduces himself, expressing his happiness to have her on board. He explains that he is the one with Plunder magic, adding with a touch of humor that he's also quite good at carrying luggage. Overjoyed, Khloe thanks them and swears she will be an asset to the party. With the introductions complete, a dependable new comrade has officially joined their ranks. Inside the Adventurers Guild, senior members discuss a series of troubling events. One official notes the unprecedented appearance of Red Wolf juveniles alongside adults, followed by the emergence of a lich in the cemetery. An older, mustachioed man listens, grimly acknowledging that quest-related troubles are piling up one after another. He continues, voicing his suspicion that the monster ecosystem has been altered and that someone is deliberately interfering with it. The branch chief apologizes, accepting the situation as her responsibility, but the older man clarifies that he isn't trying to place blame. She understands his unspoken point and agrees. With resolve, the older man declares that today, all personnel of the Adventurers Guild will take decisive action. Following his declaration, a notice is posted for all to see. The guild will suspend all quest orders until further notice, a decision that prompts immediate shock. The decision sends a shockwave of protest through the guild hall. Adventurers cry out in anger and confusion, demanding to know why they can't take quests and worrying about their livelihoods. Amidst the growing chaos, Mason explains to Luna and Khloe that while he managed to exchange their reward, he couldn't get any details about the sudden suspension. Khloe adds that her party registration is still pending. Their conversation is interrupted as two figures, Moreau and Shile, call out to them from across the room. Shile waves to get their attention, while Moreau, looking grim, remarks on how terrible the situation is. He approaches the group, noticing their new companion, and asking if they've expanded their party. Khloe introduces herself politely. Shile then turns his attention to Luna, asking if she's okay and if she has heard the news, but her confused expression reveals she hasn't. He then delivers the grave news. The elven town of Elosum is currently under attack by demons. The words strike Luna with the force of a physical blow, leaving her stunned and disbelieving. The news shatters her composure. Luna cries out that she must return to the mansion at once. As she turns to leave, Mason grabs her arm, urging her to calm down. He tells her it's too dangerous to go alone and insists they will go together. He watches her, his thoughts heavy with the weight of her burdens. First Lutz, and now her entire hometown. From behind, Luna's quiet voice offers a simple, heartfelt thank you. Upon arriving at the royal palace, Luna rushes to her parents, crying out for them. Her father assures her they are safe, but her concern immediately shifts to the town. He acknowledges the danger, explaining that he has already dispatched magic-armored soldiers and that they should seek safety. Mason, however, declares that they are also going to Velosum. The Elven King is taken aback, questioning why they would venture into a town with over 200 demons. Mason explains that there might be a clue there that could help Lutz. Her father presses him, asking why he would go to such lengths for Lutz. Mason meets his gaze and admits that he honestly doesn't know, but firmly states that one doesn't need a reason to save a comrade's family. The king seems to accept this, thanking him for the strange answer. His tone then shifts to one of practical inquiry, asking what kind of skill Mason possesses, suggesting that it might be of some help. He answers with a single, impactful word: plunder. The king's eyes widen in shock, his regal composure momentarily broken. Before the king can respond to the revelation, a fully armored guard bursts through a nearby door, urgently calling for his majesty. The guard delivers his report. From a distance, Mason watches alongside his companions, a look of understanding on his face. His attention is drawn away as the queen, Sadly, approaches his group. She addresses him directly, stating that they still wish to borrow his strength and that she has something to give him. She presents him with a sheathed blade. As Mason takes it, he is stunned to realize it is the magic sword Graham. He stares at the legendary weapon, scarcely believing it is meant for him. The queen tells him to rely on her if he has any trouble with the sword and adds that she has something for his party as well. Holding the blade, Mason formally thanks Her Majesty. He accepts a final gift from the queen, a teleportation crystal, which she explains is connected to her own. She assures him it can be used a few times should he find himself in grave danger. His companions, Khloe and Ek, gather around to inspect the precious, glowing item. Khloe remarks on its beauty, while Ek reminds Mason to be careful with such a valuable tool. As they venture into the forest, their journey is immediately met with a grim sight. Mason gasps, his eyes fixed on the massive, splintered trunk of a great tree, a clear sign of terrible destruction. He and his companions freeze, their expressions hardening with caution. Khloe suddenly calls out for them to wait, sensing something is wrong. Her warning comes just as Mason detects a voice from nearby. Peeking through the foliage, he identifies the source, a hulking orc, its danger level assessed as moderate. The beast looms over two young elves cowering on the ground. One of them, a young man, throws his arm out protectively in front of his companion, shouting a desperate plea for her to be shielded. Before the orc can strike, Khloe flashes past it in a blur of motion. She unleashes her Fox Beast Slash, a powerful strike that carves a deep, dark gash across the monster's back, causing it to cry out in shock. With the immediate threat neutralized, she turns to the two terrified elves, who are now sitting up. She asks if they're okay, and the female elf stammers out her thanks. She and the rest of the party gather around the rescued pair. The male elf, still shaken, is asked if there were any other people with them. His face contorts with horror as he points deeper into the woods. In a small clearing, the bodies of several other elves lie scattered and motionless on the ground. He surveyed the grim scene, his expression hardening as Khloe and the two rescued elves watched him with concern. The young female elf's voice trembled as she took in the full scope of the tragedy, crying out in disbelief that everyone was gone. Beside her, the male elf confirmed her fears, his face a mask of horror as he checked a fallen kinsman for any sign of life. Seeing her distress, Khloe placed a comforting hand on the grieving elf's shoulder. She acknowledged how cruel the situation was but urged the young woman to endure. Through her tears, the elf, now identified as Luna, declared that she could never forgive the demons responsible for the slaughter. Luna's vow of vengeance resonated with Mason, whose own anger simmered. He couldn't forgive them either. The mention of demons sparked a crucial question in his mind. What was their objective in this massacre? His strategic thoughts were cut short by a low, menacing growl that suddenly emanated from the dense foliage nearby, putting the entire group on high alert. From the shadows, the source of the sound revealed itself. A silver panther, a creature known to be of significant danger level. It stalked forward, its eyes fixed on the party. Without hesitation, Mason stepped forward to intercept the beast, planting his foot firmly on the ground. He instructed Khloe to have Luna use healing magic on her injured companion, taking charge of the sudden crisis. He positioned himself between the monster and his companions just as the panther made its move, lunging forward as a blur of silver fur and claws. The beast closed the distance in an instant, but Mason's reflexes were faster. With a sharp, decisive movement, he met the attack head-on. In a flash of dark energy, he manifested a massive, ornate black sword, catching the panther's assault on the flat of blade with a resounding clang that halted its charge completely. He watches, stunned, as the immense black blade he had just summoned dissolves into particles of light, vanishing completely from his grasp. As he wonders where his weapon went, the silver panther lets out a pained cry and quickly retreats, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. He then looks down at his gloved hand, questioning what he could have possibly stolen. A glowing symbol materializes on the back of his glove, and he realizes the truth. His plunder skill had taken the creature's swift foot, but it had transformed into something new, Gale. He expresses his astonishment to Khloe, who speculates that perhaps stacking the same skill caused it to evolve. Mason admits he never knew such a thing was possible. With this new power, his attention returns to the injured Luna. He assures her that he can now transport her and the other survivor to a safe place even faster. She looks up at him, offering her thanks. As he prepares to leave, Khloe tells him to be careful, confirming that she and Ek will search for other injured people. Mason affirms that he is counting on them. In an instant, he dashes away, moving with incredible speed through the trees with Luna held securely in his arms. The sheer velocity is breathtaking. Luna, now safe, expresses her amazement at how fast he was, and Khloe agrees, marveling at the power of his Gale skill. With the immediate danger past, Khloe and Ek begin their search through the woods. Ek notes that their keen ears and nose should prove useful for finding anyone else. After a moment, Ek reports that it doesn't seem like anyone is nearby. Understanding the situation, Khloe decides they should proceed further into the forest, but with caution. As she and Luna walked through the forest, the young elf called out to her. Khloe turned, her expression questioning, and simply acknowledged her. She thanked Khloe for becoming their companion, praising her reliability. A faint blush touched Khloe's cheeks as she admitted that hearing such praise now was a bit embarrassing, but she quickly added that she was counting on Luna as well. Luna's expression fell slightly as she confessed she didn't feel strong enough. She looked towards the sky, acknowledging that they would likely face even stronger monsters ahead. Despite possessing incredible magic power, she admitted her true desire to become as strong as Khloe. Her declaration hung in the air for a moment, surprising even herself. Seizing the opportunity, Khloe turned to her with a determined look, proposing that they spar while they continue their search. She explained that while real combat is the fastest way to improve, they don't have that luxury at the moment. With a confident smile, she declared their next training session would be a duel between them. Luna, her resolve hardening, accepted the challenge. Amidst the bodies of fallen armored guards, a woman with dark, curved horns stands unimpressed. She warns the last conscious guard to stay away, stating she has no business with them. A sharp-toothed grin spreads across her face as she reveals her true purpose, expressing her anticipation to finally meet her target. Meanwhile, Mason flees through a wooded area, guiding the two young elves. He feels the urgent need to regroup with his companions, but acknowledges there is something he must do before that. He breaks into a determined sprint, his mind set on a single goal. He knows he is defenseless in his current state, but he must reach the king to ask about someone named Graham. His run brings him to the foot of a grand, spire-topped building. He looks around in confusion, calling out for the guard who should be posted at the entrance. He cautiously steps inside, finding the vast entrance hall unnervingly quiet. The silence is absolute. No one is there. A sense of dread creeps in as he wonders if something terrible has happened. A voice suddenly cuts through the silence, identifying him as the Plunder. Mason spins around, startled, to see the horned woman standing there. He realizes with a jolt that he knew she would be here. She takes a deliberate step towards him, confirming that he is, indeed, heading right where she wants him. Now face to face with the strange being, Mason's eyes are wide with shock. He asks her if she is a demon. She ignores the question, her fanged smile unwavering as she states that she wanted to meet him, the plunderer. His gaze shifts past her, catching sight of a figure lying motionless on the floor. He recoils, questioning what he is even doing as he shouts at her to stay back and demands to know why she is here. He recognizes the crumpled form. It's the guard. The sight of the fallen man in his dented armor confirms his worst fears. There is no doubt now about the fate that has befallen this place. He stares in horror at the dark, clawed hand, the truth crashing down on him. He realizes she killed the guards, understanding now why the palace is so deathly quiet. Lunging forward, he grabs her arm, demanding to know about Lutz, the elf boy. He asks if she kidnapped him as well. The horned woman remains placid, a faint smile on her lips as she concludes that she will have to fight him right here. She clicks her tongue, dismissing his questions by stating she cannot tell him about that. Instead, she turns the interrogation back on him, mentioning she also has something to ask the annoying crystallization kid. He ignores her question and presses his own, asking why she joined the hero's party. He shouts for her to shut up, but internally, her words have shaken him. He admits to himself that his only motivation was to be useful to everyone. His confession is met with a burst of derisive laughter. She scoffs at the very idea, declaring that there's no way a plunderer like him could ever be useful. Her insult strikes a deep nerve. His eyes widen in shock, the pupils shrinking to black voids as a single, humiliating thought fills his mind. Are you stupid? Sensing his distress, she changes the subject. She reveals that he isn't her real target and asks where she is, explaining that she expected the girl to be with him. He flinches, caught off guard by the sudden shift. He quickly understands who she means. Realizing Luna is her target, a surge of protective fury washes over him. He declares that he won't let her lay a hand on Luna. Driven by this new resolve, he lunges forward, striking her squarely in the chest with his open palm. A brilliant flash of light erupts at the point of impact. The light fades, revealing his attack had no effect. He stares in disbelief, realizing his power isn't working, just as it failed against the Red Wolf. The horned woman stands perfectly still, arms crossed, looking down on him with mild curiosity. He He remains frozen as the horned woman breaks into laughter, her voice echoing with amusement. She remarks that his power is just as she'd heard it was. She leans in, taunting him. She asks if he truly doesn't know how to use his own ability, dismissing it as a power that can only work on weak, small fry monsters. Mason is left speechless. He recoils, thinking what a waste of his plunder ability it is. The horned woman muses that she could put it to much better use, prompting Mason to demand how she knows about his skill. Her hand gently cups his face as she delivers a chilling revelation. His plunder ability belongs to the demons. His eyes widen in utter shock, his mind struggling to process the information. The horned woman seems genuinely surprised by his reaction, asking if he truly didn't know. Elsewhere, Khloe attempts to console a distraught Luna, who is kneeling on the ground in tears. Khloe tells her to stop crying, reminding her that this is supposed to be sparring. Luna sobs that it's impossible, convinced she isn't cut out for combat. A moment later, she stands, her demeanor shifted to one of resolve. Luna asks Khloe what she can do to help her and Mason. Khloe considers it, suggesting enemy detection, but then acknowledges that is her own specialty. She explains that while her own senses can detect distant enemies, it would be ideal if Luna's magic could pinpoint their exact locations. Spurred on by Khloe's belief in her, Luna's eyes fill with determination as she agrees to try. She then admits her ignorance about magic and asks Luna where magical power originates. Luna explains that many elves store magic within their hair, which is why elven men often have long hair as well. She elaborates that to use it, they amplify the power, gathering it from their hair and channeling it to their hands to cast spells, like the beam she often shoots. Khloe listens, beginning to understand. She suddenly has a realization, exclaiming to Khloe that she's figured it out. Her idea is to gather magic power in her eyes to use them for detection. Thanking Khloe for the inspiration, she declares her intent to try it immediately. As she begins to concentrate, Khloe senses a distinct shift in the atmosphere around them. A moment later, Luna's eyes open slightly as she confirms she can now see. She tells Khloe that although the Beastkin can't detect anyone by sound or smell, her magic reveals what looks like a person behind a nearby rock. Believing it might be someone injured, she immediately runs toward the location, with Khloe close behind. Khloe reaches the rock first, cautiously peering around the large stone. She finds nothing. As Luna catches up, Khloe reports that the area is empty. Luna is bewildered, certain of what she saw, while Khloe concedes that it's for the best if no one is hurt. The elf's distress grows as she wonders if the person managed to hide their presence. Khloe suggests the unsettling possibility that they were being watched. Luna's anxiety mounts, compounded by her worry over Mason's delayed return. They reason that given his speed, he should have already returned, leading them to fear that something has happened in the capital. Overcome with a bad feeling, Khloe decides they must go after Mason, proposing they use a teleportation crystal. Luna gives her immediate, earnest agreement. As their teleportation was imminent, the scene shifts to the capital, revealing the dire circumstances they feared. Mason is slumped against a wall, his head bowed in apparent defeat. Hovering just above the tiled floor are the shadowy, claw-like feet of an unknown assailant, a silent testament to the danger he faces. A desperate plea for his safety hangs in the air, a stark contrast to the ominous presence looming over him. From an upper floor, Luna and Khloe look down, relieved. Luna confirms that Mason is still breathing. With a faint glow of magic, they begin to descend the stairs. They reach him on the ground floor. Khloe kneels, calling out his name and asking him to answer, but Luna cautions her that it's better not to move him too much while he lies unresponsive. His eyes remain closed, but his breathing is steady. Luna assesses his condition, concluding that he is simply unconscious. As Luna sighs in relief, her attention is drawn to a dark, ornate sword lying on the floor nearby, a sudden exclamation mark of danger in the quiet room. Khloe and Luna stare at the weapon with confusion. Khloe, bewildered, asks what it is. Her expression shifts to one of dawning recognition and fear. Luna realizes with dread that it is a demon's sword. The sword, identified as Graham, pulses with a dark aura. Far in the distance, the winged demon who had pursued Mason flies away into the sky. She clutches her arm, complaining to herself that it's broken. She laments that after just getting it healed, she is now going to get scolded. Back on the ground, Mason's eyes snap open, wide with alarm. He seems to sense the departing demon, who continues her flight, still preoccupied with the thought of being reprimanded. The demon glances back, a thought crossing her mind. She muses that Mason was hiding something significant, something she suspects is definitely bad. Mason, now sitting up, stares intently in the direction she flew. Meanwhile, the horned demoness fled, her frustration mounting. She cursed her luck, realizing she had just missed her target, and that confronting the fox tribe with only one good arm would be a severe disadvantage. Nothing was going according to plan. Back in the strange, empty expanse where he had awoken, Mason stood alone and disoriented. He looked around the white void, a soft sound of confusion escaping his lips. Suddenly, a small, fuzzy, dark creature materialized nearby, calling his name. Mason turned, still trying to get his bearings, and questioned his surreal surroundings. The creature floated closer, peppering him with questions about his strength and referencing a power called Plunder. Confused, Mason asked what it was talking about. He finally turned to face the entity directly, demanding to know its identity. The creature's cheerful demeanor faltered, expressing disappointment that Mason had no memory of it. Its form seemed to droop with dejection as it declared its motivation lost. Mason, still completely bewildered by the situation, pressed for an explanation. Ignoring his confusion, the creature delivered a blunt assessment. He was completely unable to use the power known as Plunder. The declaration struck Mason with surprise. It conceded, however, that awakening Graham was a positive step forward. Seizing on this, Mason implored the creature to teach him if it knew so much. His desperation was palpable as a torrent of questions poured out. He needed to know how to master the power, whether it was demonic in origin, and if he was even worthy of wielding such a thing. He remains on his knees in the void, pleading with the fuzzy spirit. "Wait, hold on," he says, as Graham seems to consider his request. The spirit, Graham, reluctantly agrees, but sets a firm condition. It will only answer one question, stating its aversion to lengthy explanations. Seizing the opportunity, he asks the most pressing question on his mind: what he should do from this point forward. From the darkness, Graham's voice echoes, pondering the answer. The spirit's response is cryptic and immediate. It declares that the answer is the opposite of what he expects. Before he can ask for clarification, Graham elaborates, advising him to simply do the opposite of his usual actions. With that, the spirit bids him farewell and begins to vanish, leaving Mason shouting in confusion. His desperate cry echoes into nothingness as the void dissolves. His eyes flutter open to a different reality. He is in a bed, and Khloe is leaning over him, her voice filled with concern. She asks if he recognizes her, and he weakly utters her name. She informs him that he has been unconscious for 3 full days. The news stuns him, his mind struggling to process the lost time. He protests in disbelief, feeling as though only a moment has passed. Khloe clarifies the situation, explaining that they found him collapsed at the royal palace. The memory floods back into his mind. "That's right, he murmurs, recalling the events that led to his collapse. As he sits up, he notices Luna is also present, watching him quietly from across the room. He instinctively reaches a hand out towards her, his expression unreadable. Startled by the sudden gesture, Luna calls out his name in surprise. Her surprise gives way as Mason pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace, his face buried in her hair. She returns the hug, her face pressed against his shoulder as she whispers a single phrase, her voice thick with relief. "Thank goodness." He pulls back slightly, apologizing to both her and Khloe for making them worry. Luna confesses that she thought he had died. The word seems to jolt his memory, and he urgently asks about the state of the capital and the monsters. In response, Luna looks down, explaining with a somber expression that the army had apparently withdrawn just as suddenly as it appeared. Khloe watches him, her expression thoughtful as she wonders aloud why they would retreat, speculating that perhaps it was because of something he did. He doesn't answer, instead pushing the bedsheets aside as he prepares to get up, his mind clearly elsewhere. Noticing his distraction, Luna presses him, asking what exactly happened and insisting he tell her as well. Mason's expression becomes haunted as he begins to explain that someone. Before he can finish, a regal-looking elf enters the room. He addresses Luna as Your Majesty, asking if she is all right before casually dismissing Mason's condition as simple magic exhaustion. Mason continues his explanation, recounting that Graham wasn't supposed to have a blade. He recalls trying to use his magic power while gripping the sword, which resulted in a giant black blade appearing. The elf's casual demeanor vanishes at that specific word. "Black," he repeats, his tone sharp. Mason confirms, asking if something is wrong, but the elf simply instructs him to continue, his expression now one of intense gravity. He continued his account, explaining that the manifested sword struck the demon and cleanly severed its arm. As he listened, the Elven King's expression grew heavy. He recalled the demon picking up its own severed limb and departing with a cryptic "see you later." The king voiced a dreadful theory he hoped was untrue, wondering if Mason knew something more. His eyes narrowed as a chilling possibility solidified in his mind. What if the demon's true target had been Mason all along? To confirm his suspicion, he turned to a large tome, opening it to a specific page for Mason and Khloe to see. He instructed Mason to read from the section titled The 3 Great Skills. The book listed the 3 legendary skills: Champion, Demon King, Conquest, and Hero, Excalibur. The king explained a fundamental rule of these abilities. As long as an owner exists, a second one cannot appear. He then identified Mason's own unique skill, Plunder. Mason, his face etched with guilt, apologized for keeping his secret. He understood the principle. When the owner of such a skill dies, a new owner is determined, often a newborn. He knew his skill was Champion, but he couldn't bring himself to accept it. He confessed the source of his shame, finding it unbelievable that his skill belonged to a champion. He had been expelled from his party, and the words the demon had spoken to him continued to haunt him. Hearing this, Khloe and Luna were unfazed. Khloe declared that she wouldn't be surprised if Mason was a champion, stating that in her village, he was already considered a hero. The Elven King echoed their sentiment, telling Mason he should be confident and that they would guarantee it. He placed a hand on his heart, stating that Mason had saved him many times and that he believed in him. Touched by their unwavering faith, Mason looked at his friends. He listened as the Elven King's voice echoed, urging him to think carefully about how to use his power. The king's face appeared, his expression grave as he explained that the demons would most likely be the ones to come after him, and questioned how Mason planned to use his skill against them. He processed the stark reality of the king's words. The demons were after his skill. They would either try to recruit him or eliminate him. No matter the outcome, he would be forced to fight an opponent who coveted his power, using that very same ability. He looked down, clasping his gloved hands as the king continued his counsel. It was better to avoid fighting while revealing his hand, and for that, Mason himself needed to understand his skill on a much deeper level. He admitted that he had been feeling the same way, acknowledging that he knew too little. The king affirmed this, stating that Mason needed to learn the skill's roots and activation conditions. Clenching his fist, Mason realized he could no longer make excuses about not knowing or not being able to do it. With a newfound clarity, he declared that he finally understood the mysterious nature of the demons and the true extent of their strength. His eyes burned with renewed determination. He knew now that no matter how amazing his allies' power was, they could not underestimate their demonic foes. They were opponents that had to be defeated as soon as possible. Inside a tavern, Mason expresses his concern that the Adventurers Guild is still closed. He worries that their savings won't last, as the situation is too sudden. Kondo, sitting opposite him, calmly remarks that it will probably be a while before it reopens. A young man named Leaf approaches their table with grave news. He explains that the Elven King was apparently attacked by demons. When asked about the king's fate, Leaf elaborates that a combined party of adventurers, elves, and the Fox tribe managed to drive the attackers away. He then wonders aloud what the hero's party is doing amidst this chaos. After delivering his report, he sits alone at the table, a somber expression on his face as Mason and Kondo get up to leave the establishment. As he sits in silence, an older man, the proprietor, approaches him from behind the bar. He observes that Leaf seems to be in a bad mood, but Leaf tersely tells him to shut up. The proprietor continues, asking what happened with his party members. Looking away, Leaf admits that he hasn't met with them yet. Sensing a deeper issue, the man asks if they had a fight. He then offers a piece of fatherly advice, urging Leaf to treasure his companions. His words seem to have the opposite effect. Leaf's demeanor shifts instantly from sullen to intense as he grabs the proprietor's head, demanding to know what he thinks about the recent demon activity. The older man, unperturbed, calmly takes a sip from his glass. He asks if Leaf is referring to the rumor that someone might be cooperating with the common people. Leaf confirms that is exactly what he means. He debates telling Leaf what he knows, but Leaf presses him. The man brings up the adventurer Leaf expelled from his party, prompting Leaf to supply the name, Mason. With the name spoken, the proprietor makes a shocking claim, that Mason has connections to the demons, leaving Leaf stunned into silence. As the accusation hangs in the air, the older man closes his eyes and delivers a final, cryptic warning. He tells Leaf that those hands, presumably the demons, are reaching out for him. The tavern proprietor's words weighed heavily on Leaf. He sat alone, contemplating the warning that he would not be protected if he chose to act. The accusation against Mason echoed in his mind, a single, troubling question. Him? As he grappled with this, his party members found him. The light-haired girl called out to him as Rond, waving cheerfully as she and their hooded companion approached. She immediately questioned where he had been, complaining that with the guild closed, the two of them couldn't take on any quests. He barely seemed to hear her, his gaze distant and troubled as her use of his name, Rond, only deepened his contemplation. Their hooded companion, however, cut through the chatter with a grave announcement, stating simply that Mason was targeting them. The declaration shocked the light-haired girl. She protested that it couldn't be true, insisting that Mason wasn't the kind of person who would do something like that, and that there was no reason for him to act against them. Ignoring her defense, Leaf's voice cut through the air, firm and resolute. He forbade them from meeting with Mason again, issuing it as a leader's order. His tone left no room for argument. Though visibly hesitant, the light-haired girl quietly agreed that she would not meet him. The hooded figure then asked what their next move should be. With a grim set to his jaw, Leaf declared their new mission. They would crush Mason's party. Meanwhile, in a forest far away, Mason's group was focused on a different hunt. He asked Khloe for an update, and the Beastkin reported that the scent she was tracking, though faint, suddenly vanished right where they stood. Luna looked around, wondering if their quarry had taken to the sky. She mused that their target either flew on its own or was picked up, noting that her own detection magic was yielding no results. Mason decided they needed to investigate the demons more thoroughly, prompting Luna to ask if he meant searching the adjacent area. She looks at her companions in surprise, questioning how they could be unaware of the neighboring country, Equehix, which she explains is renowned as the land of knowledge. Hearing this, Khloe suggests that returning to the basics and drilling their knowledge would be a sound approach. Luna enthusiastically agrees, adding that the National Library there holds countless history books, a prospect she finds incredibly exciting. Mason agrees that they should do their best, but Khloe's enthusiasm wanes as she admits she is not very good at studying. The practicalities of the journey then come to mind for Luna, who points out that they don't have any horses. Mason acknowledges the problem, stating that since he doesn't know how far they'll be traveling, he wants to establish a reliable method of transportation. He settles on an immediate plan, declaring that for now, he will use his physical enhancement and swift foot skills to get to the stable. But as he prepares to activate his abilities, a sudden, jarring realization strikes him. His eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief. He stares down at his hands, the horrifying truth dawning on him. He knew his techniques wouldn't come out. His skills are gone. Noticing his distress, Khloe immediately asks if the demon they fought took them. Mason dismisses the idea, stating firmly that when he slashed at the creature, his skills were definitely still there. Khloe seems to have a thought, but quickly says it's nothing. Mason, lost in his own troubled mind, mutters about a space and wonders what he plundered that has now disappeared, prompting a confused Luna to ask what he means. He ignores her question, coming to a grim conclusion. His only choice, he decides, is to plunder movement skills for monsters. The declaration leaves Luna staring in stunned silence. She suggested that Mason find a monster with a teleportation skill, but he, panting from the effort of their journey, admitted he had never encountered one. Khloe then offered a less magical solution. He could simply plunder a physical enhancement skill and pull them in a cart. Her practical, if tiring, suggestion was met with frustration. Khloe accused Mason of simply complaining, while Luna, exasperated, pressed him for any other ideas he might have. He then proposed the idea of flight, but immediately pointed out the obvious flaw. Even if he could fly, it wouldn't help his companions. A small, whimsical vision of him soaring away alone emphasized the point. The thought left him momentarily speechless, a bead of sweat forming on his brow as the reality of their predicament set in. With no easy solution available, the group resigned themselves to a long trek on foot, ascending a desolate, rocky slope. Mason reaffirmed their objective, to reach Equex. As they walked, he turned his attention to their captive friend, asking Luna if she could sense how Lutz was doing. She closed her eyes to focus, explaining that she was constantly sensing him. At first, she had felt his anxiety and tension, but now he was calm. She theorized that Lutz might either know they were coming to rescue him, or was perhaps thinking of how to escape on his own. He instructed her to alert him immediately if she sensed any change in Lutz's state. She quickly agreed. Their conversation was interrupted as Khloe noted that the area was full of active volcanoes. Luna added that, as a result, hot springs were scattered everywhere around them. The mention of hot springs caused Luna to become visibly flustered. Her face flushed as she stammered, asking if they were planning on getting in, a prospect she clearly found mortifying. Despite her initial hesitation, she found herself drawn to the water's edge. Crouching down, she decided she would just touch it for a moment. She recoils, her face flushing as she exclaims at the intense heat radiating from the water. Of course, a natural spring would be hot, but the sudden blast of steam catches her completely by surprise. Her startled cry draws the attention of her companions. Khloe turns toward her with a look of mild concern, asking what the matter is. Before Luna can respond, Khloe observes the bubbling surface and remarks that the temperature doesn't seem comfortable. As she speaks, Luna stands frozen at the water's edge, her focus fixed on a strange disturbance. She senses something is wrong. Her eyes widen in sudden alarm as the ominous feeling intensifies, a gasp catching in her throat. The source of her unease then breaks the surface, a slick, black hoof splashing into view. A silent warning screams through her mind. Something dangerous is here. From the depths of the hot spring, a powerful, horse-like monster rears its head, its mane and tail like flowing shadow. The creature is identified as a kelpie, its sudden appearance turning the tranquil scene into one of immediate peril.